My wife cheated on me while I was traveling for work. She got pregnant by her lover and tried to make me look like an idiot to steal everything I built. She accused me of being abusive and demanded alimony. But with a DNA test and cold revenge, I left her with nothing and alone. I never imagined that the worst disappointment of my life would begin so sweetly, almost like something out of a romantic movie. I am Miguel. I am 35 years old. I own an import and export company that operates between Mexico and the United States. I have worked since I was very young. I have always been one of those who prioritize duty above all, you know? I grew up in a traditional family in Mexico City, where I learned that success is achieved through effort. Maybe that is why I never had time for love until I met Amanda, a woman who honestly seemed to come from another world. She is 28 years old. She is a cook in a small but renowned restaurant, and it was precisely in that setting that our lives crossed. We met at a gastronomic fair, an informal event of those where you do not expect much more than good food and music. Amanda was the type of woman who lit up the place with just her smile. Not only was she beautiful, and she was very beautiful, but she had a light and fun character, with that charming accent of someone born and raised in the suburbs of Puebla. I, who have always been too rational, was completely hooked. It was not something immediate, like love at first sight. It was something quieter, like a sweet poison that slowly takes over me. We started seeing each other more and more. Amanda said that she loved my centered attitude, that it transmitted security and tranquility to her, and I was captivated by every detail of her, how she tied her hair up in the kitchen, the jokes she made out of nowhere, even her irritating habit of chewing on the pen cap. She was a hurricane that burst into my life, devastating everything, and I opened all the doors to her. My friends said that I felt different, lighter. Even my mother commented that I finally seemed to be alive. Then, 6 months after we started dating, we decided to get married. I know it seems fast, and looking back I wonder if it was not a sign, but I was so blind, so in love, that nothing made me doubt the decision. We had an intimate ceremony in Puebla, just for family and close friends. Amanda cried so much during the vows that I, who always considered myself a tough guy, cried with her. At that very moment, I truly believed that I had found the woman of my life. I felt like the luckiest man on the planet. Returning to Mexico City, being husband and wife, was the beginning of a new stage. I was always very present, even during my business trips. I made sure to send flowers when I was away. I called daily, wrote notes, those silly things that I did not even know I was capable of doing. Amanda said that it made her happy, that she felt loved, and I believed her. I believed so much that I let her quit her job and dedicate herself exclusively to the house, something she said she wanted to do to be able to focus on starting a family with me. I supported her without hesitation. The truth is that, looking back now, I realized that this stage was like a beautiful dream about to become a nightmare. Amanda seemed perfect, and I sank deeper into a love that grew every day. But what I did not know, or perhaps did not want to see, was that invisible cracks were forming right under my nose. Little things I ignored, gestures I pretended not to notice, but I still did not know that the worst part of my life was about to begin. After the marriage, my life became an almost cinematic routine. Me, the dedicated businessman, with constant trips to Monterrey, Guadalajara, and to the name of the company, and her, the perfect wife, who took care of the house while we dreamed of having children. At first, Amanda seemed to enjoy this new dynamic. She said it was good to have time for herself, to read, cook, and redecorate small corners of our apartment in the Roma neighborhood. And I, as always, trusted her. I traveled, but I always brought her something. Swiss chocolates, duty-free perfumes, small gifts to show her that I was thinking of her, even from afar. But as the months went by, something began to change. It was subtle, almost imperceptible to those who were not paying attention. Amanda, who used to greet me with warm hugs and long kisses, began to become distant. She no longer had that sparkle in her eyes when I came back from a trip. Often, she did not even leave her room. I would come home and find her on her phone or watching series without much desire to talk. I tried not to dwell on these details, telling myself it was stress, boredom, anything but the obvious. I started noticing little lies. At first, silly things. She would say she was going to visit her mother, but her mother would say she had not seen her in weeks. She would say she was going to take a walk, but I would find bills from cafes far from home. Still, I forced myself to believe her. I was, above all, a man in love and naive. I did not want to be that jealous, possessive, and paranoid guy. It did not suit me. So I swallowed every suspicion with a fake smile and kept pretending everything was fine. There was a specific day that stuck in my mind. I came back from a short trip to Querétaro and found Amanda sleeping on the couch with her phone in her hand. The screen was on, and on impulse, or perhaps out of the instinct I had been suppressing, I looked at it. It was a message. It was great today. I cannot wait for the next one. The contact's name, just a bicycle emoji. My heart sank, but when she woke up, she smiled as if nothing had happened and hugged me. And I remained silent. I did not say anything. I did not ask. I convinced myself that it was all in my head. I wanted to believe with all my strength that the problem was me, that it was work stress, travel fatigue, any rational thing that could explain this distance. But it was as if Amanda had become an empty version of herself. The kisses were mechanical, the conversations forced, the caresses almost non-existent. I found myself fighting alone for a marriage that, without knowing it, was already slipping through my fingers. And still, I kept denying what was right in front of my eyes. The trips became more frequent and, ironically, I began to fear the hours at home more than the business meetings. There was a restlessness in the air, a silent tension, something I could not identify, but that was eating me up inside. I became a stranger in my own home. However, no matter how much my heart pounded, I did nothing. Maybe because I did not want to face the answer I already knew. Maybe because, deep down, I still believed she was that sweet woman from the food fair, the woman I swore to love. Little did I know that the worst was yet to come. I do not think any human being is prepared to have the ground pulled out from under them, as it happened to me. It was an ordinary morning, like so many others, when a client canceled a meeting at the last minute in Veracruz, and for the first time in months. I thought, I am going to surprise Amanda. I bought her flowers, our favorite sweets, and even that Chilean wine she loved so much. I was really excited. I wanted to rekindle the flame that I felt was dying out. I did not know that this would be the last time I would feel like a real husband. I came home unannounced. I still remember the key turning in the lock, the strange silence, the absence of the smell of food, and the scented candles that Amanda always lit. I entered slowly, as if something inside me already knew, and then I saw it. Amanda and a man in the living room. He held her by the waist, and they were laughing. They were kissing. They seemed so comfortable, so intimate, that for a moment I thought I had gone to the wrong house. But no, it was my living room, my sofa, my wife, my nightmare. I stood there paralyzed. I do not know for how long, maybe seconds, maybe minutes. Amanda realized it right away. It was not until she turned to one side and saw me standing there with the flowers fallen on the floor that she froze. The man, whose name I would later discover, Dario, the personal trainer from the gym, moved away awkwardly, as if I were the intruder in that grotesque scene. Amanda started muttering something completely incoherent. Miguel, it is not what it seems. I can explain it. But I could not hear. The blood was pounding in my ears. I did not scream. I did not cry. I did not break anything. I just left. I took my keys. I got in the car and I left. I remember driving aimlessly through the chaotic streets of Mexico City, not knowing what to do or where to go. My fingers were trembling on the steering wheel, my vision was blurry, and inside me something was breaking irreversibly. I did not know who I was, who she was, what was real, and what had been a lie from the beginning. The pain was so intense that it felt physical, as if someone had torn my heart out with their bare hands. I spent hours like that, aimlessly. My mind replayed the scene over and over again. Her touch, her laughter, her look of panic when she saw me. I wondered when it had all started, on which trip, in which fake hug. Every detail of our story seemed rotten, stained, contaminated by a betrayal I never imagined I would experience. I felt humiliated, small, ridiculous, and worst of all, I still loved her, and I hated myself for it. I did not go home that night. I slept in my car, parked near Chapultepec, trying to regain my sanity. When the sun came up, I knew I had to do something. I could not pretend, I could not hide it. For the first time I understood that my life would never be the same again. And yet, a part of me still hesitated, because deep down I was still not ready for what was waiting for me. I cannot explain what was worse, seeing the scene with my own eyes, or waking up in the car the next morning and feeling that suffocating weight of knowing that nothing will ever be the same again. I drove home in silence, my head spinning, my stomach churning, and my hands cold. The journey that I had made so many times with excitement and longing. This time I did it with such a deep disgust that I could barely breathe. When I opened the door and entered, Amanda was sitting on the couch, pale, as if waiting for a verdict. I did not cry. I did not scream. I simply said with a calmness I could not even imagine, "I want a divorce." She stood up immediately, desperate. She cried. She screamed. She tried to explain herself. She said she was confused, that it had been a mistake, that it meant nothing. I watched the scene as if watching a movie from a distance. There was no more love, only pity. I felt sorry for her, and even more sorry for myself for having believed I was special. Amanda tried to get closer. She tried to touch me, but I stepped back. Every cell in my body was screaming at me to get away. I told her she had to leave the house as soon as possible and that there was nothing more to say. She spent hours trying to make me change my mind. She begged me. She promised me she would break up with Dario, that we could start from scratch. She told me she loved me, that she was sorry, but every word she said seemed hollow to me, echoing in an abyss where I could no longer really hear her. I was paralyzed. There was a coldness inside me that I never thought I would be able to feel. While she was talking, I was already on the phone scheduling an appointment with a lawyer. It was as if I was watching my own life from the outside, making automatic decisions. That same day, I changed the locks, not for security, but for dignity. I did not want her to come in and out as if nothing had happened. I did not want that fake version of a family that I had tried so hard to build anymore. Little by little, I was processing it. The wedding, the vows, the trips, talking about children, everything seemed ridiculous. Now, a cheap soap opera script with a pathetic ending, and no matter how hard I tried, I could not shake the feeling of being a complete idiot. Amanda spent a few days alternating between pleas and silence. She even wrote me a letter trying to convince me that we could get through this together. I did not even read it all. Why? I did not understand or pretended not to understand that it was not just about the sex, the kiss I saw. It was about trust. And that cannot be rebuilt. I was exhausted of being the only one fighting, exhausted of carrying the weight of a doomed marriage alone. At first, I did not tell anyone, not my friends, not my family. It was as if I needed time to understand the depth of the wound before revealing it to the world, but I knew that the story would soon spread. And deep down, something told me that this grotesque episode was just the beginning, that things would get worse, and I had no idea how right I was. If I thought, even for a second, that Amanda would accept the divorce with the same coldness with which I announced it, I was completely wrong. As soon as I formalized the request with the lawyer, she revealed a side of herself that I had not seen before, or perhaps one that had always been there, hidden under the guise of a good wife. In less than a week, Amanda hired a lawyer and, with a terrifying calm, began to demand a monthly pension, saying that she was pregnant and that the child was mine. The bombshell dropped as if the universe had spat in my face. In addition to the betrayal, now there was a baby involved. I am not a monster. I never was. The idea of having a child was always in our plans, and even in the midst of the emotional hurricane I was in, a part of me hesitated. What if it was true? What if that baby was really mine? Amanda used this as a weapon from the beginning. She wanted to keep me under control through guilt, morals, and obligation. She told me I was a coward, that I was shirking my responsibilities, and that the least I could do was take care of her and the child. I could barely breathe. I could barely sleep. It was like being trapped with no way out. In addition to the pension, Amanda demanded to remain on my health insurance and wanted a significant part of my assets, including surprisingly an apartment in Cancun that I had bought years before, even before I met her. Her audacity left me speechless. It was as if that face that I loved so much had become an empty mask, driven only by self-interest and manipulation, and it did not take long for the social bombshell to explode. Mutual friends began to take sides. Some called me furious, accusing me of abandonment. Others supported me, shocked by her shamelessness. I began to live in a constant state of alert. Every call was an attack. Every message contained emotional blackmail. Amanda began to play dirty, to spread rumors that I was forcing her to stay at home, that I was emotionally abusive to her, that the divorce was a cowardly act. It was incredible. I felt as if I were being lynched for a crime I did not commit, and the more she lied, the more I kept silent. I did not want to get dirty. I did not want to play her game, but it was tearing me apart inside. My mother, my brothers, even my partners, began to ask me what was going on. The versions multiplied, and little by little, I found myself enveloped in a cloud of gossip and lies. Amanda used all possible resources to paint me as the villain. Tears, anger, sweet words to anyone who was willing to listen. She was the perfect victim, and I was the idiot who had been betrayed and was about to lose everything I had built. I began to realize that if I did not react soon, I would be destroyed not only emotionally, but also financially. It was at that moment that my lawyer advised me to demand a paternity test during the pregnancy. At first I resisted because it seemed cruel to me, inhuman. But my life was in the hands of a woman who did not hesitate to manipulate me for her own benefit. And for the first time since everything started, I accepted that I needed to stop being the good guy everyone expected me to be. I needed to protect myself, and little did I know, what was to come would destroy me in ways I could not even imagine. If I thought I had already hit rock bottom, I had no idea how deep the pain and humiliation could still drag me. Following the lawyer's advice, I requested a paternity test during the pregnancy. It was a slow, uncomfortable, and above all, painful process. Amanda cried, screamed, called me a soulless monster. She said that I was killing her emotionally. She made sure to tell everyone that I was accusing her unfairly, that I was paranoid and cold, but I no longer cared about her words. I needed the truth for myself, for my sanity. The results came a few weeks later, and I remember exactly the moment I opened the envelope in the lawyer's office. My hands were shaking so much that he had to read it to me. The baby was not mine. Those 4 words echoed in my head like a final sentence. It was as if all of this had been a dirty theater from the beginning. Amanda was pregnant, yes, but the father was Dario, the same man she had cheated on me with in my own living room. In that instant, something died inside me and never came back. When Amanda learned the result, she tried one last desperate tactic. She said that I should still do the right thing and raise the child with her, that blood did not matter, that a father's love was greater than any biological bond. She cried, knelt down, and said that the child would be ours and that we could get through this together. I could not even answer, just seeing her with all that drama. It made me sick. How could she have the nerve? How could someone lie so easily without the slightest hint of genuine remorse? What destroyed me even more was the external pressure. Her family started contacting me, calling me and writing to me, telling me that I was being cruel, that I should forgive, that no one is perfect. They even accused me of being selfish for not wanting to raise an innocent child. Some mutual friends also started talking to me about empathy, as if I were the ruthless villain who abandoned a pregnant woman. I asked myself daily, am I going crazy? Am I the one who is wrong? But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that scene in the living room, that kiss, that look in her eyes, and I remembered that I owed nothing to anyone. Amanda did not give up. She showed up at my apartment, called late into the night, sent me handwritten letters trying to move me emotionally. She wanted to get me tangled up in that web of lies and guilt again, but I was no longer the same man. Something inside me had broken and hardened. For the first time in my life, I learned to say no. I said no to her family, no to the external pressure. And the more I stood my ground, the more desperate she became. I could see in her eyes that control was slipping through her fingers. It was then that I began to think that this story, which already seemed surreal, could get worse. Amanda was not one to accept loss so easily. I sensed that there was something behind that facade of desperation, something I did not yet know, but that sooner or later would come to light. And with that, the silent war that was brewing between us began to gain strength. If I thought the worst had already passed with the DNA revelation, I was very wrong. Amanda, humiliated and out of control, decided to go for the only thing she had left, the destruction of my image. Thus began the dirty war. She told her friends, family, and childhood friends that I was an emotional abuser, a cold and abusive man who had made her suffer throughout our marriage. And to my surprise, many believed her, some out of naivety, others because they really wanted to see blood. Little by little, what was once just a divorce turned into a circus. I woke up with notifications on social media, People sending me aggressive messages, people cutting me out of their lives without even knowing what had really happened. Amanda played dirty, and I remained silent. It was my lawyer who told me, "Do not be like her. The truth always comes to light." But I could not stand being seen as the bad guy anymore. Every time someone judged me without knowing the real story, it was as if they were reliving the betrayal 100 times. It was then that I made the decision to hire a private investigator. I needed proof. I needed something solid to protect myself not only emotionally, but also legally. And that is when things started to get out of control for her. The investigation revealed that Amanda not only continued the affair with Dario for months before the wedding, but also got involved with other men while I was traveling for work. She used the money I left her for small encounters, made hidden payments, and lied with a terrifying ease. I saw those photos and reports and felt a mixture of disgust and relief. I was not crazy. I was never the bad guy. These proofs were given to the lawyer. The detective was impeccable. Photos, message logs, videos, everything. There was so much material that I could barely look at it without feeling nauseous. I did not show it to anyone outside of the legal sphere, but knowing that the truth was there, documented, irrefutable, gave me some peace. Amanda, of course, had no idea that I already knew everything. She continued with her act, appearing from time to time to cry at my building's door or posting dramatic statements on social media. As the legal battle intensified, I found myself more and more isolated. Few friends remained by my side, and most of the people I considered trustworthy were gone. It was during this time that I discovered who truly loved me and who was just there for their own self-interest. My family was my only refuge, and little by little that image of a betrayed and destroyed husband was replaced by something new. I became a man who rose from the ashes, albeit with deep scars, but even with the proof in hand, even with the divorce in progress, I knew that Amanda would not give up so easily. People like that do not accept losing, they need to win, even if it means sinking into loneliness. And I felt with an uncomfortable certainty that she still had more hidden cards, that her fall was not yet over, and that one way or another life would find a way to avenge every lie, every betrayal. The day the divorce was finally finalized, I felt more relieved than victorious. There was no celebration or sense of accomplishment, just a dense silence and the feeling of having survived a hurricane that had swept away everything I knew. Amanda did not get what she wanted, no alimony or a single cent more than what she was entitled to by law. The division of assets was fair, cold, and mathematical. She got some furniture, personal items, and a small amount that did not even come close to what she was trying to get from me. My company, the only thing that had been my true passion, besides raising a family, remained intact. I maintained control of all the contracts, the branches, and the commercial properties. The apartment in Cancun, which she so desired, also stayed with me. It was strange to think that for a while I had imagined building family memories in that place. Now, that property was just a frozen symbol of everything I almost lost. Amanda, in the end, left with much less than she had planned. The most ironic part, Amanda and Dario did not even get together. Shortly after, rumors began to reach me without my realizing it. They had broken up. They said that Dario had gotten involved with another woman and Amanda, once again, was alone. I also heard that she was having financial difficulties, that the pregnancy, which until then I did not even know if she had gone ahead with, had left her in an unstable situation. I still do not know what became of her. I only know that after so much chaos I needed to get away from it all. That is why I decided to start over far away. I sold my apartment in Mexico City and moved to Merida, where I opened a new branch of the company and rented a simple house near the sea. I needed fresh air, silence, a space where I could find myself again. I spent months avoiding social media, cutting contact with toxic acquaintances, and for the first time in years I began to understand who I was without Amanda. Without lies, without manipulation. It was a painful process, but necessary. Memories of her still surfaced in the details. A smell, a song, a casual conversation in any coffee shop. Sometimes I found myself reliving good moments and wondering if everything had been fake from the beginning. This doubt, this invisible wound was what hurt the most. But I also learned that some answers we will never have, and that persisting in looking for them only prevents us from moving forward. There was nothing left of her in my life, except for the scars. And that in the end was liberating. Even with everything resolved in theory, I knew that the inner reconstruction would take much longer. I was free, yes, but not whole. Something inside me had died, and I did not know if I would ever be the man I once was again. Still, I had to try. And the first step was to leave the past behind and look to the horizon, even if I was afraid of what might come. Sitting on the fine sand of Progresso Beach, watching the sun slowly set into the calm sea, I finally realized that I had survived. I did not come out unscathed, not strong, not proud, but I survived. Miguel, 35 years old, successful businessman, a man who believed in love and whose heart was broken without warning, without anesthesia. I always thought that trust is unbreakable, that if you love well, you care, you protect, and you value, the other person will never betray you. But life taught me the hard way. Blind love and blind trust can be the worst traps. Now I recognize every sign I ignored, every white lie, every emotional absence, every lost look she gave me while talking about my dreams. I refused to see the obvious. Why? Because I desperately wanted it to be real. Because the fear of loss was greater than the courage to see it. It was not just the months of betrayal or the public scandal that destroyed me, but the fact that I betrayed myself first. I betrayed myself every time I doubted my own instincts to cling to a marriage that was already dead. Today I value different things. I value my time alone, my small daily achievements. I went back to playing sports. I adopted a dog. I rediscovered hobbies that I had abandoned for lack of time, or because I prioritized someone who never did the same for me. I started investing not only in my work, but also in my mental health. I understood that losing someone does not always mean failure. Sometimes losing someone is the first step to finding yourself. I never looked back at Amanda's life ever again. I do not know if she had the child, if she was with Dario or with someone else. I do not care. The only thing I wanted was peace, and I finally achieved it. I cut ties with mutual friends, with people who lied to me or watched my pain from the sidelines. It was difficult, but necessary. I needed to shed everything that tied me to the past so I could breathe again. Now, in this new chapter of my life, I know that I still carry scars. I know that I will never be as naive as before, but strangely, I also know that I am stronger. Not for having won a battle, but for having survived the kind of war that destroys the soul. I look to the horizon, and for the first time, I do not fear what awaits me. I feel hope. I feel that I deserve something better. I do not know if one day a new love will cross my path, and honestly, I am not in a hurry. And this is where I ask myself with an open heart to anyone who has gone through or is going through something similar. Do you think I did the right thing by cutting ties with Amanda and moving on without looking back? Or should I have tried to forgive and build something new, even with all the lies?